Hey guys, Chris Durry here. Today I'm going to take you through my AFL team of 2020 through to 2029. So this is a best 22 and it's based on a piece I completed for ESPN around this time last year, except this is an updated team. So of course, being a year on, there are some movements. So let's take a look at what they are. So here I've got the team that I created in January of last year. And underlined is the changes. So you've got underlined for the changes of my team from last year, and then I've got my team here for this year. So the underlined is the new players to my team. So as we can see, there's 11 players out, 11 players in. And given time, there's a greater push towards the youth, where I guess being a year on, it's a bit easier to take out some of the older guys and put in a few of the newer ones that have really pushed through and really forced their way in, you could say. So starting with some of the players of interest that I've taken out, so Sam Taylor. So I've still got a lot of faith in him as a key defender for Greater Western Sydney, and I think he can take over and be that number one key defender from Phil Davis. But of course, only the 4 games this year, but I'm expecting him to rebound next year and definitely establish himself, if he isn't established already, as really a genuinely quite a high-level key defender. So he's someone to watch for, but my personal view is there are others who have gone past him at this time. So that's the reason why he's been taken out. So in my defence, I've got Lukosius, who is a tall defender, so he can play key if you need him to, but he's also an incredible kick. So you could even make a case he's a top anywhere between 1 to 5 kick in the AFL, I'd say, at this point in time. So I just like the extra capabilities from a Lukosius if I'm to really do a comparison there from that perspective. And then we've got a Connor McKenna. So this is one where, well, now he's retired 1 year on, which at least for me at this time, at the time of writing, I didn't see coming. But he's someone where I included him in my original team for a very deliberate reason. So he's someone where, as a pure rebounder, in terms of having the kick, having the vision, providing that run and dare from defence, in terms of that offensive impact, I think his impact was, at least now in past tense, as high as anyone in the AFL. So he's someone where mid-season draft, I would absolutely be making a pitch to Connor McKenna to come back if I'm looking for that drive off halfback, because he can really play. And he's someone where quite a few people probably underestimate him, but he's someone that I'm definitely a fan of anyway, having watched him on game day. But as a replacement, well, Luke Ryan, having the year he did, being the interceptor that he is, good kick, he can play taller if he needs to, so he gives you a lot of options in defence, so I really like that. And then key defender, so Jacob Wiedering out, and that's a tough call. I really like Wiedering, I still do. I think he's one of the very, very best young key defenders in the competition. But with that said, having watched what Noah Bolter did, it's hard to go past him. And with a Bolter, I get a lot of flexibility as well, where he can play any of the 18 positions on the field. So you can play him key forward, key back, you can use him as a ruck, you could use him as an on-baller if you want to, where he can actually go in, win his own ball, charge out of stoppages. He hasn't had the chance to show it at AFL level, really, but that's something you could ask him to do for a bit of a shock factor, and he could actually have a few moments and surprise some people. So, Noah Bolter, I think he can become one of the very, very best in the competition. So by no means is it saying Jacob Wiedering isn't good. It's really about, hey, Noah Bolter is a star. And there were comparisons during the year I found of Bolter to an Alex Rance. But to me, as harsh as this sounds on a Rance, I think that's almost insulting to Bolter, where Bolter's just such an incredible athlete, can do things that a Rance just simply can't, and Bolter just has the versatility to impact in so many other positions. So I didn't like hearing that comparison during the year, and I think Bolter, you could use him as a key forward. He could be the best key forward in the game if he was used as a forward. So having those sorts of options and having that sort of upside, having his rate of improvement, I really think Bolter over the next 10 years will establish himself. He could even be better than a Harris Andrews, realistically, as a key defender. So, keep watching Bolter because, he's a star and is already established. And then in last year's team, so I had James Sicily, and It's a fair enough decision. Hard to regret sort of in hindsight. Obviously, he's a really good player. Intercepts, kicks well. He's someone you want on your team. But watching the ascendance of Jordan Ridley was really incredible this year, where I know in having watched his VFL form from 2019, watching those little snippets at AFL level as well when he got a few games together, watching his preseason stuff, he really looked good. And winning a best and fairest during the year is absolutely incredible, but shows really how good he is. And he's someone where I think he can even take a few more steps, where with an Essendon, they really lack that drive from defence, where with McKenna retired, Adam Sard's gone, I wouldn't be shocked if Ridley took more kickouts and even took a few more steps, but we'll have to see how that goes. But yeah, he's someone where certainly, and being able to play taller as well, is a 192 I believe he is, so you can play him taller, gives you the flexibility with this sort of squad to put a Bolter somewhere else, or Lukosius somewhere else. And when you've got guys like Ridley and Ryan who can play taller, it really sort of gives you those options. So I really like that as a general thing. And with the McGrath, I've moved him a bit further up the field. And look, you just want him to get a lot of the ball, but he's someone where he's still at his best in terms of his run with the ball. So although there's a few midfielders I'd take in front of him in terms of drive off sort of half back or as that sort of running type, I would absolutely include McGrath in that sort of role in this sort of team. So that's why he fits there for me. But you could use him all over the field. You can put others back, move McGrath up the field, put him into the midfield. They're all more than valid options. But yeah, again, flexibility is a helpful thing. So having these types of guys like a Lukosius, a Bolter who can play other positions, McGrath's the same. I think that's more helpful than not. So. And then some guys who I've taken out, so Lachie Whitfield, so you could very easily argue he's still in there, but for me, just being on that older side, he's a 1994 birthday, so maybe he doesn't quite make it to that 2029, and with some minor durability issues, I think there's a few that could possibly outdo him, so he's someone where he's come out, and then you've got a Bontempelli as well, where again, similar story though, on his side he's got the durability, but again, you've got some guys where they're younger, maybe they even go past him, but with a Bont, he may or may not quite make it to 2029, and maybe at the very back end of his career, he might not quite be the player that he is today. So, a judgment call, had him in last year, but there's a few ascending young midfielders who I think are going to be absolutely fantastic. So, I'll go on to those guys in a moment, but Jaden Stevenson, well, 12 months on, it's incredible seeing him traded for a late pick, so... and he was someone where really I had him in there because he's a youth, he's a good forward who really already from his first season was established and great. So hopefully for him he has more success with North Melbourne and really, I guess, takes the next step with his game. With Stevenson as a junior, he's someone where you could even play him wing through the midfield, so that would be the natural expansion of his game. He's actually an elite endurance athlete, which a lot of people won't necessarily know, having seen Stevenson really at full forward, just sort of leading out of the goal square and really becoming pretty quiet after the opening minutes of the game, really was his story of this year. But he's someone where he's still got the capability to bounce back, but 12 months on, he would not come close to making this team for pretty straightforward reasons. So, and then a Ben King. So he's since been replaced by a Max King for me, but at the time I had Ben King, not because I thought he was a better player. I knew all along Max was the better player, but just coming off the major injury, not knowing how Max would look, would he come back the same player? I went the risk-averse route and stuck with Ben, but I'm more than happy to replace him with Max given how really dominant close to goal Max is looking, and I think he's got some real steps up from here. So yeah, and then you've got a Patrick Cripps. So he was in my team then. Is he now? No, but I do think he'll get back to being the footballer that he's been in recent years. I think last year really is a blip for him, and if I'm, say, a super coach sort of person, well, absolutely I'd be sticking in my team. Same with AFL fantasies. So yeah, and I might be making some sort of fantasy football content over the coming weeks, so let me know in the comment section below if you'd like some of that. But yeah, Tim Taranto, another very close, very unlucky not to make it. He'd be one of my next probably one or two players to miss out, so a bit stiff, but yeah, missing time last year, not looking quite the same player that he was in 2019. Just a bit unlucky there. He has the chance still to earn his way back into this group, but yeah, it's just with a few young midfielders really coming good this year and really showing some fantastic signs, Taranto has been passed by. And a Tim Kelly, so he's another where he's a 1994 born. Will he make it to 2029? Probably not. And his 2020 season was good, but it wasn't quite up to the standard that I hoped. So with the development of other midfielders, he's been passed by. So for some of the inclusions, so Christian Petracca, I'm really happy that I can include him in my team now, where he's someone where put him in the midfield, he is dominant in there, and you can put him forward and he's going to have an impact there too. So, and being such a high proportion contested ball winner, having that sort of drive out of the contest, he's an impact player. So having an impact player like him, and he's actually fairly durable. He'll play 22 games a year most years. So yeah, I'm really happy with that inclusion. And yeah, he just adds a bit more power. So yeah, good addition for me. And having the season that he had, if for anyone who watched the preseason, there really wasn't any surprise factor to Petracca's ascension. He looked like the best midfielder on Melbourne's team, much better than Clayton Oliver during the preseason. So yeah, shouldn't really be too surprising how well he did in 2020, and I would be expecting more strong seasons like last year's. Although, if I was, say, a Supercoach person, I wouldn't necessarily include a Petracca, mostly on the basis that game time will be lengthening, and he being more of a power player, he might not be quite as high scoring as he was last year. So a hint for the fantasy people out there. But yeah, and then a Zach Butters. So he's someone where I actually see him really ascending. And again, for the Supercoach people, he might be someone to include, same with AFL Fantasy, but he's someone where I'm really seeing, I don't think he'll remain forward. I think he's actually going to get midfield opportunities from this year. And all the signs, really the rate of improvement has been staggering with the Butters, where watching him in the under-18s, he was good, but not as good as the top-end guys. First season, wow. And then second season, whew, even better. So he's someone where he's earned his spot on this team. And I think he's going to be a legit midfielder, and I think he could be Port Adelaide's best player this year. So that's a narrative to watch. So yeah, I've got a lot of faith in Butters, and yeah, I think he'll have a really good year and a really good 10-year period, injuries permitting, of course. So Max King I've covered, so he's a genuine number one option inside 50. Having he and Norton, I think that's a good mix. And then you've got an Isaac Rankin, so he's someone I left out again this time last year purely because he had those injury issues. We needed to see him come back, know that he can be durable and healthy, but certainly on talent he was always, for me, that sort of number one small forward. And I think he'll claim that ranking in the AFL, and just watching his first season, I think a lot of people have really slept on how good he is. I know in my first video I covered that I thought he should have been rising star, and for really most of the season I actually thought he was better than Sarong, and I thought his impact probably was maybe a tiny bit better, honestly. So, because with a Rankin, I'm looking at him as, even today, as a top, I'd say certainly top 15 small forward in the comp. I'd say probably even bordering on top 10 already. So, and I think he'll really rocket up that conversation in a hurry. So, yeah, with a Rankin, offensively, just incredible. He makes something out of nothing, like almost just about no one else in the competition. So as long as his pressure is at a level that's really strong, and if he starts finding more of the footy, that's when we're really going to see the ascension, because he's got all the game there. So, and then with a Tom Green, so I've mentioned him in another video as well, but he's someone where I truly think he will become the premier contested ball winner, stoppage player, clearance winner in the competition. So might not necessarily be this year, but I do expect him to become a regular this year and really become a dominant stoppage player. But we'll have to wait and see exactly how quick that ascension is, but I think it's less up to Tom Green and more so up to the GWS coaching staff and allowing him to really be that number one stoppage guy, because you have someone tapping it down to him and he'll just be in the right spot to win it just about every stoppage. He just has that read of it like no one else at stoppages. So yeah, Tom Green is someone to really watch for future years, and yeah, watch out. And Ajay Simpkins, so seeing his first half of the season, whew, he's someone where I guess he's a tag risk, where if you tag him, you can shut him down. But yeah, look, I think he'll take another step forward this year. And again, he's someone who's really earned his spot on the list, where before last year, look, he was good, but he wasn't great. in 2020 he became a great player. So, and I think a bit like with a Zach Butters, a Jai Simpkin for North Melbourne, he will by far and away become North Melbourne's best player, best midfielder. So yeah, he's North Melbourne's future, and yeah, I need to give him due respect here. He thoroughly deserves to be on this list. So, and then you've got a Jared Berry. So again, I like the flexibility this pick offers, where you can put him across half-back if you want to move someone else up the field. You can put him on the outside if you want to, say, put a Walsh inside. So you get a lot of options there. And then you've got an Adam Chera, where he's someone where, again, you can put him across half-back, outside. You can put him forward, put him inside. You get a lot of options there. So just having those capabilities, I really like that. So, and in the next part, I'll go over some of the more speculative guys that I got right. So on the more speculative side of things, so there was a lot of uncertainty around Jack Lukosius a year ago. So in analysing his first season, I thought his first half of his first year, so this was 2019, wasn't all that strong, where he was playing mostly sort of a forward wing role. But then put him behind the ball, just looked instantly comfortable. His second half of the season was very strong. So, and then year two, he just maintained that position in defence, had that clear role, and that allowed him to really become an excellent player. He was number 2 in the competition for metres gained. So doing that as a 195 key position-ish type, just incredible stuff. And I think he'll continue to build on that. So, but here's someone where equally, if you keep him in defence, I think that caps his upside a little bit, where if you used him centre half forward, wing, either or, doesn't matter. If you allow him to be someone where every time he leads up at the ball, you hit him with a pass, he takes a mark, he could be something like a 200 mark a year player who generates the most meaningful kicks inside 50, hitting targets lace out, just causing scoring opportunities here, there and everywhere. So it's sort of a shame there isn't 2 of him, but and that's what I always say with a Lukosius, but he's someone where absolutely I would want him really everywhere, but just for the purposes of this team I had him in defence. But yeah, if ever he moves forward again, I would probably be including him as a forward, because I think he could be even better as a forward or on a wing. So one that a lot of people weren't sure of and was a talking point this time last year was Matt Rowell. So of course last year was his first year. People who were just casual football watchers or hadn't seen him as a junior wouldn't have known any better and would have thought, oh, that's a bit premature. But having seen him win best on ground honours in the TAC Cup Grand Final, then the NAB League Grand Final the following year, seeing his progression and just dominance through the junior ranks, for me it was a pretty obvious call, and he really needed to be in that team. So that's why he made it in there, of course. So, and then seeing what he did this year, so leading into the season, I thought, yeah, he can win a best and fairest for Gold Coast. As soon as I saw him in the pre-season competition, I was thinking, yeah, he can do that. And I didn't see him getting into this sort of Brownlow-esque sort of form, but there we go. But just complete player, does everything. What's rare about a Matt Rowell is he does things where just off the ball, he blocks for teammates, he runs in support. It's just things you don't see 18-year-olds do. So yeah, I have a great deal of respect for a Matt Rowell, and he's really going to be the engine for Gold Coast for a long time through the midfield. So. And then other players of interest. So there were quite a few questions about a Bailey Smith as well this time last year, but that was one where I was just confident on his talent, where I knew as a midfielder, you give him midfield minutes, he is going to be one of the best midfielders in the competition. And that's what it looks like this year, where, as I argued at the time of the 2018 draft, Bailey Smith is the best midfielder in this draft. You don't pick Sam Walsh, you pick Bailey Smith a few picks later as that best midfielder. So I still prefer Bailey Smith, but as it was at the time, it is a neck and neck call where both Smith and Walsh, credit to them both, they are terrific AFL footballers and they'll be stars of the competition. I think as Sam Walsh, he'll play more inside this year, become a better player, of course. With a Bailey Smith, it's a bit like in his first year where, gee, how do we get him the midfield minutes? Where you're adding a Treloar to a midfield where you've already got a Dunkley, a Bontempelli, the list goes on. So it's just, can a Bailey Smith get the midfield minutes that he really deserves? You've got a Liberatore there as well, so it's just, that's going to be tough. But if he does get those minutes, he will thoroughly deserve the spot on this list and earn that. So Thanks for watching, guys, and let me know in the comments section below. Is there anyone that I missed in my best 22, and were there any players that you were happy to see me include, perhaps? So that would be interesting to hear. And also in recent weeks, I've been getting quite a significant amount of demand from Supercoach and AFL fantasy people. So yeah, I've got some topics planned for future weeks, but yeah, if there's anything in particular for Supercoach or AFL fantasy that would be of particularly strong interest, let me know, and I'll get producing some content along those lines, because I play those games as well, and across every list and every player I have an opinion on. So yeah, I can provide perhaps some unique insights. So yeah, I'd be interested to hear some thoughts. So yeah, if you made it to the end, give me a like, subscribe and hit the notification bell if you haven't already, and yeah, see you in the next video.